Every night my cat stares out the window. Tonight I found out why. Every night my cat, Lilith, perches on the windowsill, her eyes locked onto something outside that I can never seem to see. Nothing averts her gaze, not people walking by, not the rustling of leaves. Even trying to touch her elicits no reaction. Nothing seems to deter her unwavering attention from the window. Lilith, for context outside of this weird nightly ritual, is the most loving ragdoll cat you've ever seen. She's a little chatterbox who mews, purrs, and cuddles the day away. Come nighttime, her entire demeanor shifts into being unnerved. She sits still, not moving, just starting at the nothings that nighttime brings, until the early break of dawn, in which she resumes her normal demeanor, in which she comes, curls up beside me, and falls asleep soundly purring. I dismissed it as her staring at moths or small bugs, or even maybe the outdoor cats that live around our place, assuming I somehow don't notice them in the blanket of nightfall. Curiosity turned to concern when I noticed Luna's behavior growing more intense. One night the air felt unusually charged, and a bone-chilling silence descended upon the room. Lilith's eyes widened, reflecting an eerie luminescence from whatever unseen force captivated her gaze. Summoning courage, I joined her at the window, peering into the inky abyss. At first I saw nothing, just the usual dimly lit surroundings. Then I noticed the rustling of a tree right by my window, and a silhouette of a person appeared. Curiosity got the best of me, and I sat peering at the figure. At first glance I assumed that it was just some person drunk coming home from the bar that's a few blocks away, and that they somehow stumbled into our yard. Maybe even my neighbor's friend coming home late, given we have a shared outdoor space. But as the shadow grew closer, I felt my stomach sink, at the same time that my usually docile, goofy kitty started making a deep, guttural growling sound. As the figure drew nearer, my blood turned to ice, as her features became illuminated in the streetlight. Looking back at me from the other side of the glass was, well, me. I stood there, transfixed by the spectacle before me. My doppelganger mirrored my movements, but its grin stretched unnaturally wide, sending shivers down my spine. Lilith, usually composed, hissed vehemently at the window, her fur standing on end as if sensing the sinister aura. Fear gripped me as I stumbled backward, breaking the unnerving connection. I jammed the blinds shut, but not before it raised its hand, breaking from the gimmick of mirroring me, and gave an unnerving wave. From that night on, I avoided the window, hoping to escape the haunting presence on the other side. Yet the air in the room remained heavy with an unspoken dread. I started sleeping in the living room, Lilith never wavering from her perch on my bed, staring out into the darkness, at what I can only assume is my mirror image night after night. I didn't know who to tell. How can you explain that? My family would dismiss it as stress from work and life. Finally, I couldn't handle the nerves night after night, and I finally told my best friend Lily. That night she stayed over. Lilith perched in her window spot as usual, and for the first time since I saw it, I peered through the blinds and saw it again. Jumping back, my best friend peered out the same window. "What? There's nothing there, are you okay?" She gave me a look that was mixed with concern and confusion. "What do you mean, can you not see it?" I looked back out, and the thing was laughing at me with that horrific, uncanny valley grin, and lifted its finger to its lips, making a shh motion. "It's right there!" I shrieked. She glanced back out, and I averted my gaze to her. Dude, there's nothing there. I glanced back out the window, and sure enough, whatever it was wasn't there. Defeated, I suggested we go make some tea and try to watch a dumb show as a distraction. Watching TV, smoking a bowl, and a hot cup of tea later, my nerves had settled a bit. Maybe you've just been really stressed. Not to sound like your parents, but your new job keeps you busy. And that with the lack of sleep, I don't know. Maybe it's causing some sort of walking nightmare? Lily tried to soothe my fears. And after some back and forth and brainstorming, I started to settle into the idea that maybe it is all stress and trauma induced. The idea actually gave me some peace. Then, at midnight, on the dot, a low guttural scratching emanated from the window. My best friend jumped, and we exchanged a look of fear. Dread settled in the pit of my stomach as we cautiously approached the window in my room. Lilith, her eyes wide with alarm rather than on her usual perch, cowered in the corner. The scratching intensified, accompanied by a haunting whisper that seemed to carry my own voice. Distorted and twisted. "Let me in," it murmured, the words sending a shiver down my spine. "Okay, I heard that. What the fuck?" my best friend exclaimed. With trembling hands, I opened the curtains. My doppelganger was back, still grinning, pressed its hands against the glass. The barrier, the only thing keeping it from entering my world. "Oh, fuck, is that you?" Lily whispered, her pupils dilating in fear. With every ounce of strength, I resisted the impulse to unlock the window, to scream at it, to do anything to end this nightmare. My heart pounded as the sinister figure outside became more desperate, its grin contorting into a snarl. Lilith, sensing the imminent threat, hissed louder, her fur bristling as she fled her corner spot and bravely positioned herself defensively between us and the window. In a swift motion, shoved the curtains closed. I grabbed Lily's hand and booked it out of the room. Still hearing the scratching and whispers, turned to screaming and pounding on the glass, so sure that at any moment the glass would give way and let whatever that thing is into my home. As the night wore on, the pounding and yelling reduced back to scratching and whispers that eventually faded away with the daybreak. For the next few weeks, I stayed with Lily and hired movers to get my stuff out and back to my parents. I haven't heard or seen anything like what I did at my old place since. Lilith has resumed sleeping soundly by my side, seemingly having totally forgotten the horrors we all just went through. I'm writing this because I just moved into my new place. And once everything was unpacked and things were settled, it was just Lilith and I again. We were left alone in the oppressive silence, haunted by the realization that at any time, my doppelganger, with its twisted grin, could be patiently awaiting its next opportunity to break through and confront me with a malevolence I couldn't comprehend. And Lilith has been giving concerned passing looks at the window as the evening moved in today. Never again. Mark and Lisa, young and in love, found what seemed like the perfect apartment nestled in the heart of the city. It was a fresh start, a new chapter in their lives together. The apartment, with its high ceilings and large windows, seemed to welcome them with open arms. The first week was a blur of unpacking and decorating, turning the empty space into a home. They laughed and danced in their new living room, their love filling every corner of the apartment. But as the days passed, a subtle change began to creep over them. It started with small things, misplaced items, forgotten conversations, a feeling of unease that neither could quite place. Sleep became elusive. They tossed and turned, plagued by nightmares that slipped away upon waking, but left a lingering sense of dread. The apartment, once so full of light, seemed to darken, the shadows growing deeper. Mark began to hear whispers, faint and indistinct, like echoes of conversations just out of reach. He searched the apartment, but found no source for the sounds. Lisa, too, felt eyes on her when she was alone, a gaze she could never quite meet. The air grew heavy, oppressive. Time seemed to warp and bend within the walls of the apartment. Hours would pass in the blink of an eye, or stretch out interminably. The couple found themselves increasingly isolated, the outside world receding like a distant memory. Arguments started, small at first, then growing in intensity. Accusations flew, fueled by an unseen force that seemed to feed on their anger and confusion. Mark found the first note hidden in a drawer, a simple message scrawled in a shaky hand, "Never again." The meaning was unclear, but its presence sent a chill down his spine. The apartment itself began to change. Doors would lock and unlock of their own accord. The lights flickered and buzzed, casting strange shadows that seemed to move just beyond the edge of vision. Lisa became withdrawn, her eyes haunted. She whispered of voices that called to her in the night, promising freedom from the madness that had enveloped them. Mark awoke one night to find Lisa standing by the window, staring out into the darkness. She spoke of a presence in the apartment, an entity that had latched onto them, feeding off their fear. Desperate, Mark suggested they leave, but Lisa refused. She claimed it was too late, that the entity had bound them to the apartment, a claim that filled Mark with a paralyzing terror. The days blurred together, a nightmarish loop of fear and despair. The couple felt themselves slipping, losing pieces of their sanity like leaves in the wind. On the final day, Mark awoke to find Lisa writing frantically at the kitchen table. She handed him a note, her eyes empty, her voice a hollow echo. "Never again," it read. Understanding dawned, a terrible clarity. They could not escape, not in life. The entity had ensnared them completely, a malevolent force that sought only to consume. They made a pact then, a final act of defiance against the entity that had destroyed their lives. Together, they would end it, freeing themselves from the apartment's malevolent grip. Their last moments were spent in each other's arms, a bittersweet farewell to a love that had once promised a lifetime of happiness. The note they left behind was a warning, a plea to whoever came next. Never again. A simple message, but one heavy with meaning. The apartment sat empty after that, a silent tomb. The entity within lay dormant, waiting for new souls to ensnare in its web of madness and despair. And so the cycle would continue, the apartment a trap for the unwary, its walls echoing with the whispers of the lost. A reminder of the fate that awaited those who dared to enter. Mother's attention. All Maribel wanted was Mother's attention. It wasn't her fault she was born with superhuman abilities, and her twin sister wasn't. Sarah was the quiet, shorter sister, and although they were both beautiful in their own ways, their mother always favored Sarah and saw Maribel as a freak. Maribel had long, straight brown hair that went down to her belly button, coupled with emerald green eyes and superhuman strength. She was also more flexible than other humans and could stretch her limbs far away from her body. She couldn't do it for long, though, as it caused immense pain. Sarah was the smaller one out of the twins, with jet black hair and light brown eyes. Differences between the twins were spotted early by their mother. As Maribel started walking and talking around 3 months old and rapidly outgrew Sarah after they were born. All Mother wanted was normal babies and grew to despise Maribel even before she knew she had any powers. Maribel knew she wasn't the favorite and in turn grew to despise Sarah. Mother believed Maribel's powers were unholy and decided to start taking the girls to church when they were young. It's where the girls grew up. They had just gotten back from church one day, and Sarah got changed out of her church clothes and went downstairs. Maribel had been upstairs for a while, so Sarah went back upstairs to check on her. Sarah made it halfway up the stairs and caught a glimpse into Maribel's room. The door was a little less than halfway open, but open enough for Sarah to see something that traumatized her. Maribel had her mouth unhinged and wide open, with her old box television halfway in her mouth as her long, stringy brown hair strung aside it. The saliva slowly running down the side of the old pink television almost made Sarah puke as she rushed back downstairs and acted like she didn't see anything. Another week goes by, and church came and went. As church was ending that day, everyone was outside and getting in their cars, including Maribel and Sarah's mother. Everyone had left the church except for the twins. They had gotten in an argument and been back and forth. It ended with Sarah trying to be the better person and walking away. But as she turned away, Maribel would extend her arms out and clap her hands together, making a sonic boom. This thunderous sound popped both of Sarah's eardrums and gave her brain damage. As Sarah rolled around on the ground holding her bleeding ears, Maribel fell to the ground as well, backing herself into a corner as churchgoers hurried back into the church to investigate the sound. Their mother ran back in and held Sarah in her arms, looking at Maribel, screaming over and over to her, "What did you do?" Years went by and they still attended church. But now, having felt bad for what she did, every day after church, Maribel would dance with her now disabled twin sister, after church hours as the organist plays the organ till the sun faded away every Sunday. More time goes by, and as they danced every Sunday, the dances put Sarah in a trance-like state. Sarah's hair slowly starts to turn the same shade of brown as Maribel's, and her right eye was slowly turning emerald green. As seasons changed, the twins continue their after-church ritual of dancing together with the organ instrument ominously playing in the background. Sarah's hair is now brown, form the roots halfway down, and jet black the rest of the way, and her right eye is fully emerald green now. Church rolls around this week and is over just as it started, and as Maribel sees the last person leave and the organist begins to play that familiar ominous sound, the sisters begin to dance. This dance was different. Maribel begins to be rough with Sarah, gripping her and pulling her with malice. Maribel then pulls back and looks into Sarah's eyes, as if for one last time, then gapes open her mouth. Grabbing the back of Sarah's head and pushing it into her mouth, Maribel swallows Sarah's whole head, next her shoulders, then her abdomen, quickly to the thighs. Then slowly Sarah's feet follow down into Maribel's extended, open mouth, leaving nothing but black, shinny church shoes. Now Maribel will get all of Mother's attention. The thing in the woods. They always told me to stop going so deep into the weeds, but I didn't listen. When I was young, I lived next to the Ozark National Forest. As a kid, I thought it was so fun to run through the forest, going far into it, hoping to find another world or maybe a new animal friend that no one but me has seen. Remembering it now, I see how my childhood imagination was out of this world. My mom hated that I would do all this. She told me one time that the forest was not to be played with, and that there are a lot of people that go into it and don't come back. She always wanted me to stay close, so she could hear me if I need help. But I didn't want to. There was nothing cool close to my home. With my childish mind, I knew the coolest things were deep in forest. Even after all the worrying, I didn't listen. I just had to keep going deeper. Until one day, when my mom was distracted with cooking for a party. That was the day I knew I could run deep into the woods with no one worrying or looking for me. I remember I snuck out the back door and just started to run as fast as I could. I don't even know how long I ran for, but I just want to find that new world. I went so deep that I couldn't even tell where I was at anymore. I found myself next to a small creek, tired from all the running. I sat down, not thinking about where I was or how far I ran from my home. I was just hoping to find my new world full of fun and adventure. As I was sitting down by the creek, I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched. But my childish mind was just thinking about all the cool things I could find out here. When I was feeling less tired, I stood up and started to follow the creek to see where it would take me. It felt like it took hours. But I finally found out where that creek led. It went into the mouth of a big cave. Looking into it, I couldn't see anything but darkness. I yelled into it for fun. Hearing my voice in the echo was fun, until a loud scream came from it that was not my voice. To this day, I don't even know if it was human. Hearing that scream, I ran as fast as I could back up the creek, trying to get home, but I didn't know which way it was. I didn't even know where I was. Heavily breathing, I stopped to look around. It was becoming dark. I still didn't know where I was, and I was scared. Not knowing what to do, I started to cry. But then I heard a loud crunching from something walking around me. I took off again. I didn't know if I was going the right way, or if I was going to see my family again. I ran until I tripped over a log that was laying on the ground. Scared, I crawled into a rotted-out stump next to where I landed. Sitting in the stump, trying not to make a sound, I could hear something walking up to where I had fallen. I shut my eyes, hoping it would go away. I could hear it breathing. It was trying to find me, I know it. The breathing was so loud and deep, I thought it was right next to me. I didn't know what to do, other than stay silent. After what I thought was an hour, the walking sound and breathing got farther away. I finally opened my eyes. I didn't hear anything, so I poked my head out of the stump. Seeing nothing, I took my chance, got out of the stump, and ran away from where I thought it had gone. The darkness of night was set, and I couldn't see anything in front until I saw a light from a car. Running toward it, I came out of the weeds onto a highway. The car was gone, but I started on the road, hoping another one would come by. Then I heard a sound, so I turned around to see two red glowing eyes looking at me. The eyes were so high up I had to tilt my head almost all the way up to see them. The eyes were looking right at me. I felt so scared that I just stood in the road, looking at them, not know if I was about to be eaten or if it was going to take me away to a world so dark that my childish mind couldn't even have imagined it. Just as I felt the hope in my body being sucked out of me, I heard the sound of car tires squeal right next to me. I heard my mom's voice cry out to me. Hearing that, my head turned to see my mom getting out of the car, running to me. I got so happy that at that time I forgot the eyes were there. She grabbed, crying. We hugged each other. "Where have you been?" she said to me. Just as she said that, I looked back into the woods, remembering the eyes. But they were gone. I don't remember much after that, just that we moved away from the woods. I didn't think about that night for 10 years. I'm going back to find out if that thing was real. If that night was real. After blocking out all the nightmares and sleepless nights, I have made up my mind. I have to know if that was real, or if my childhood imagination was just making it all up.